To anyone who's returning from my previous video talking about why the 3080 was underperforming in Davinci Resolve, just know that this issue is resolved. Took a lot of testing, and you can see this video that is super long, so I'm going to be upfront with you and just give you the solution to it. And this guy here, yeah, I guess he was right. Simplest answer you could have gave, but it's right. The newest game ready drivers from NVIDIA, I'm not sure about this particularly newest one because I filmed all this stuff about a week ago, but they are broken in Davinci Resolve and they will not render as quickly as older drivers. Whereas the studio drivers at this current moment, only for Davinci Resolve, work fine. Bizarre thing, because the game ready drivers work in every other program I could test. I tested Handbrake, and the game ready drivers performed exactly the same as the studio drivers. At least in Davinci Resolve, there's some kind of compatibility thing, whether it's on NVIDIA's end or Davinci Resolve's end. It is causing at least the RTX 3080, the 1070 is fine, but the RTX 3080 is having an issue with the game ready drivers in Davinci Resolve. It's a very particular issue, and I think that's why I couldn't find that many answers on it. That's the short of it. If you want to stick around and watch this monstrosity take place, then enjoy. But if you're just leaving, then I'll see you. So this is the past video I uploaded. Why does a GTX 1070 run faster than the 3080? This video did pretty well for my channel. Actually, I got some good comments and stuff, so I wanted to go ahead and go through these things. So there's this guy here first. I don't know, but my GTX 980 had no problems with installing drivers, but 3080 Ti on the other hand kept underperforming when the drivers installed improperly. No idea why, but MSI Afterburner caused some driver problems when installing them. Try to install it with DDU and make sure MSI Afterburner is closed during installation. What he's talking about, actually reinstalling your graphics drivers, doing a completely clean install with this program called DDU. DDU literally just stands for Display Driver Uninstaller. It's very simple, very straightforward. All it does is there's GPU drivers on your system, and sometimes it's hard to get to them and uninstall them. So what this does is literally just goes through, gets everything and uninstalls it, gives you a completely clean slate, and you can install fresh drivers on your system. It's as simple as that. I did this twice. I did it once just to check it, and then I did it for another reason, which I'll get into in a second. And I said, I don't think I had Afterburner installed when I did it, but I'll try it again to make sure. So I'll go ahead and check that out here soon. So this guy said, can confirm, happened to me last year. I don't know if they haven't fixed this issue, but my 1080 Ti beat my 3090 in Davinci H.265. Heck, even my 1650 is still twice as fast. Searching forums, not getting the answers I needed. They told me I needed to use a studio driver and check my preset and so on. Basically what he's talking about is there is actually a studio driver. So this is GeForce Experience here. If you just take this little drop down, you can do game ready driver or studio driver. I uninstalled my driver with DDU and uninstalled the studio driver, and it made absolutely no difference. They're basically the same thing. There's negligible differences between them. This guy here, Raspberry, he said, maybe you haven't installed the drivers for the 3080. I don't know. I'm probably not the best person to ask, but my 3080 has been underperforming in some instances too. The NVIDIA driver covers the 3080. And he also said, I'll give you some simple suggestions. Maybe you didn't upgrade your power supply after getting the GPU. Maybe you're using a splitter instead of 2 power cables, or maybe the temperature throttled, so check MSI Afterburner. This guy, after that, he responded to him and said the power supply wasn't sufficient. The PC would just shut off when it reached the power limit. He's like, yeah, I didn't think of that. And then I responded to him just recently because I didn't see these comments. And I said, sorry, I'm late. I've got a 1000 watt PSU and ran 2 separate cables for the 3080, so power is not an issue. The card gets up to 340 watts, no problem. Temperatures are fine. It was in the mid 60s, and that's all true. The GPU, when it's rendering, actually, the whole core isn't really being used, so it doesn't really get that hot. And you can get a performance difference if you don't run 2 separate cables. For say you have 2 8-pins on your GPU, then you should run 2 separate cables from your power supply, because sometimes you can have power issues. Sometimes you can be limited up to like 50 watts or something. It usually isn't an issue, but I did it just in case when I ran it, because why the hell not? This guy just said probably driver issue. I was like, I hope it is. This guy said skill issue. I was like, yeah. The guy said test it with Linux. I said, bro, that's gonna be too much. This guy said, I would guess that your CPU can't keep up with the speed of your GPU, which leads the GPU not performing at its best. I said same CPU is used in both tests. R9 5900X boosted to 4.5 gigahertz, 32 gigabytes of RAM. So if it's using the same CPU in both tests, why is the GPU, the more powerful GPU, not at least performing the same as the 1070? So this argument is negated. Here is that situation where I hope I don't have to do. This guy here, RR, the menace, giving the hard truth. He said, for Windows, the free version does not have GPU acceleration for H.264 and H.265 codecs for decoding and encoding. Only the Studio version, which is the paid version of Davinci Resolve, is capable of encoding and decoding AVC and HEVC with the help of GPU acceleration. I said, that's true. I am on the free version, was thinking about upgrading. Do you know why the GTX 1070 went faster then? Because if GPU acceleration can't be used in the free version, then technically speaking, the 1070 should be going the same speed as the 3080, but it's going faster. And then I said, as far as I know, the free version allows GPU rendering, but not playback. He responded and said, maybe you have some kind of trial version with features while using the 1070. I don't know. It's like, I don't know. I legitimately don't know why the 1070 is performing better. It's a bizarre situation. All right, so this is that same project, the OTV Escapes IRL horror game thing. Here is the renders. So as you can see, the bottom one here is the GTX 1070 test 526-86. That's the driver version. And it's clearly the other tests were 11 minutes 40 seconds, and then this went down to 7. So obviously the 1070, this was 3080. This was 1070. Big difference between them. What I'm learning is that if you do have the Studio version, I've seen some people use it when they've explained like tutorials and stuff of doing this. When you actually have this encoder option, if you have the Studio version, there's actually an NVIDIA option, but it has auto and native, and that's the only two things that are here right now. If I get the Studio version, it maybe unlock the NVIDIA one, but it still makes me wonder, why the hell did the 1070 go faster? Like, that still doesn't make sense to me. They should be going the same speed then. Like, what we're gonna do first here is actually uninstall the graphics drivers using DDU here. I'm not gonna do the Studio drivers 526.86. So we're gonna go ahead and go through Davinci Resolve again. Yeah, I just had to like point out, this is kind of like sudden and random how I like cut this. This is the same driver, but completely reinstalled with DDU. And then I did another test with the render and stuff, so I compared the GTX 1070 to the 3080, and what I'm going to show here is the results of that test. All right, let's render this baby out. We're on the GTX 1070 right now, 1070 in Task Manager, and I'm probably going to see the same results. Right now, GeForce Experience is not installed, so there's no way to have NVIDIA Broadcast or anything like that on my system, so that won't really change anything, because that one guy was talking about NVIDIA Broadcast affecting his stuff, but in this case it's impossible. Yeah, and this is how this looks like while it's running. There's that up there, and then the encoders are like half, it's using the copy, and the 3D is at like 40% ish, somewhere in there. Render just completed. Obviously it's still on the GTX 1070. And we've got 7 minutes 7 seconds. Yeah, let's get into it and put the 3080 in and see if it is the same after changing out the drivers, I guess. As you can see, 3080 is back in, 1070 is on my desk right now. We're gonna do the same test in Resolve, and if it runs fast, I'm gonna be very surprised. And remember, when I installed these drivers, these were the drivers for the 3080. Not 1070. So the 1070 still perform the same. So real quick, I'll pull up Task Manager, RTX 3080. Here's the export settings. Add to render queue, and then let's render this. It's probably gonna be 11 minutes, like 30 to 11 minutes 40 seconds, I would think. Whoa. Wait. Wait. Hold up. Hold up. Hold up. Oh shit. Oh shit. What the fuck? Dude, it's working. It's fucking working. Notice it's going faster than the GTX 1070. The encoder is like at a higher usage. It's using the copy in 3D. We'll see what it comes out to. See what it comes out to. The GPU, there's that. So that's what the GPU is looking like. See, like, if anybody was wondering, like, that, the GPU doesn't get hot when it's doing this. It's using the hardware encoders within itself. That's why this is like at, you know, like 70, 80% or whatever. Chips on the GPU that are literally built to encode H.265. It does it very efficiently, so it doesn't get that hot. That's the 3080 test. It's 1.5 minutes faster than the 1070. I'm going to install GeForce Experience and see if my render times get effed up. Now, this is going to be the absolute test here. RTX 3080 is still in the system, as you can tell here. And then I want to show you, just to confirm, GeForce Experience is on. You can see it has the overlay. So this will be like the real test. If it can't get that same time, then that means GeForce Experience is the problem. But if it is able to achieve the same time, then it was something with how I installed the driver. I don't know exactly what I did different in this one. I did that exact same thing before. And I didn't even have MSI Afterburner installed at that point in time, but you know, we'll see. So let's do the exact same test. It's saying I don't have, look at this. It's saying I don't have this driver. Isn't that fucking weird? But if you go here, it says I'm on an older driver. Huh. Ain't that some shit? Cause you guys saw that. I mean, I'm reverted back to an old driver. I don't even know how that happened. First of all, because let's go to recycle bin. This is the newest one. This is the one I used. 526.86. I installed that driver. For some reason, I'm reverted back to an old driver. So let's see what this old driver, what the hell happens? I don't know. This shit is weird. Oh, also, let me show you. I do have resizable bar enabled. So I get system information here. Resizable bar. Yes. Wait, it is going faster. Didn't change. So 3080 is officially rendering faster than my 1070, which makes me fucking happy. It makes me very happy that I'm getting value out of this GPU now. But I am curious because I do need to update my drivers. So at this point in time, I was very curious of what the hell was going on. So I got reverted back to an old driver. And that old driver in Davinci Resolve was rendering a lot faster than the new driver. Obviously, we know the answer now, but I wanted to check and see if it was the way that GeForce Experience was installing drivers or if GeForce Experience installed something that was messing up with render times. So I went ahead and I tested installing the new driver with GeForce Experience. Let's see the results. All right, so if you've never installed with GeForce Experience, this is what it looks like when you do a custom install. It basically just asks you graphics driver, physics, system software, HD audio, and then you just do perform clean install. I just always check that. Remove all NVIDIA settings to the default value and remove any profiles you've created, which I don't even really know what that does, but I like to press it just in case. I install and stop OBS because I don't want my recording to corrupt, possibly. That we are now on 526.86 and that is installed. That is the newest driver that's out. And for some reason, I'm wondering why it got downgraded. It would really suck if this is the issue. Although it would definitely tell me what's going on. I guess I'll get back to you. You can clearly tell that it's going slower. So it's either a way that GeForce Experience installs drivers or it's the new drivers. I think it's the way GeForce Experience installs drivers. It must be installing something on the RTX driver for RTX GPUs that is slowing down their encoding time for HEVC. So I'll have to do another test. I'll reinstall it with, I'll uninstall with DDU, see what happens. So I'm going to be removing GeForce Experience from my computer again.
And we'll just have to see. Maybe I just always install drivers through NVIDIA's website instead, or see what's wrong. I don't know what is exactly causing it, because the 1070 will still render good here.
I have returned. I used DDU and I uninstalled the old driver and then I put in the new one from scratch, which is the same. But this is the same driver that GeForce Experience installed, but I don't know, it's weird. This is gonna be the clean drivers 2.1. You can see afterburners up here in the corner. And this is over here. I just want to confirm to you that I am on 526.86. So here this is. All right, so I'm going to add this to the render queue, and you can see that this is here. I didn't finish the render on the other one because it was clearly going to take longer. So that was after I installed the new drivers with GeForce Experience. I'm opening up OBS again here. Yeah, I'm encoding on my GPU. It actually doesn't seem like it affects the render time that much. Dude, it's slow again. It's gonna get the 11-minute time again. I don't know what I did wrong. The fuck did I do different? What did I do different from this time when I rendered it out? The only thing I can think of is I had the GTX 1070 in my system when I installed the driver last time, and I had the RTX 3080 in it this time. I still don't have GeForce Experience. It's not in that spot on the thing. It comes back there. I don't get what's happening. Like, if I knew what was happening, I would be able to fix it. But my next course of action would be do the same thing, but have the 1070 in the system. And I'm also going to test another render on this exact same version that I have, but I'm going to put the 1070 in and see the 1070 goes faster. Then I'm going to leave the 1070 in just like I did before and do the exact same process. Uninstall the driver, make sure Afterburner isn't running, and then go through, completely cleanly uninstall the drivers, and then install the NVIDIA driver, right? And I should get the 5:30 time again. Look, I got like 11:30 again. It's back to where it was. But this does give me some sort of hope, though, that I don't have to buy the studio version of Resolve, because yeah, that would suck. I really don't want to buy the studio version of Resolve. I don't have to. This has been a fucking process. I never would have thought. Like, there's just some things that you never expect, and this is one of those things, man. Just Jesus Christ. It is the next day, and yeah, I'm gonna go through and do all of these stuff again. See if this works out. I want to apologize too. I just realized that everything yesterday that I recorded on my desktop was in 1080p, and it should be in 1440p, so it's a little blurry. Everything right now, the 1070 is in my system. Got the drivers and install the drivers while the 1070s in the system. I'm confused though. Add that to the queue and render this out. Now, I did see that in recording with OBS didn't really change the render time a whole lot. 1070 rendering here, and yeah, it looks like this. Okay, so the 1070 hit 716, so pretty much a negligible difference. So I'm going to do the same thing again and completely uninstall graphics drivers with DDU. So 526.86 on the 1070. Okay, so this is the 1070 with the drivers reinstalled again, all installed on the 1070. So we'll see it's completed in 7 minutes 5 seconds. So it's clearly okay with where we're at right now. So yeah, I'll have to look at this again. 3080 is installed. Look at that. Ain't that some shit? I think it's this driver version. Okay, so like once I put the 3080 in, and that's why, so when I've been installing it, actually the top display has been taking all the stuff, and then the bottom one isn't getting read. And it seems like Windows is installing a driver for the 3080. Last time I did the clean install on the 3080, so it must have detected it, but maybe it does install something specific to the GPU and has to reinstall a driver in order to make it work properly. It's the only thing I can really think of. So, but I can almost guarantee that when we test this in Davinci Resolve, it's going to be faster. As you can see with the 3080, I tested it again. It went down to like 530 instead of 559. So those are the tests. The theory I was having. Let's go ahead and install GeForce Experience again. I want to see if I update the drivers, if I update them to the studio driver. I'm curious. So it's something with these newer drivers, and even the one at the point, I'll have to look at it. The driver when I got the 3080, which was, I think, the Overwatch 2 drivers, something like that. The older display driver, so 512.15. So this was released in March of 2022. Now the newer display driver makes it render slower in Davinci Resolve, at least. I don't know if it is in other programs as well. I don't use any other programs, so. But 526.86, and this released on the 10th of November. So yeah, I'm curious if I switch over to the studio driver. You can also see that the studio driver is behind, and this was released on October 18th. So I'm going to try the studio drivers on 522.3, because we can obviously see from this testing that the older driver that Windows automatically reverted me to worked. And that was a game ready driver. I'll also show you that control panel is going to say the same thing. Video driver 522.30. All right, I'm going to turn off the recording and see if this. Well, surprise, surprise, surprise. I remember I tried this before, and I tried the studio drivers, and it didn't perform like this. I wonder what's wrong with the game ready drivers that makes it render so much slower, but only on the RTX 3080, which is what's really interesting. On the 1070, it's fine. Something about game ready drivers, the 3080, fuck it up. So something I am curious of is if this will perform the same in games. I might try that and play some Overwatch, and I'll pull up the FPS. I'm usually pretty much maxed out in Overwatch, so 165 FPS on my monitor. I go to 165 hertz. It'll be interesting to see the studio drivers. All right, well, it looks like we're maxed out. Yeah, I mean, it seems like I'm maxed out FPS. GPU's at 80%. I don't know. So I'm just looking at GPU utilization. I don't know if I should test it with the game ready driver, because obviously that's not working quite right for rendering and stuff. Because I honestly, I swear to God, so when I tested it before, because I installed the studio driver, because the studio driver was still slow back then, maybe there was a bug at that time that the studio driver was also fucking up. Maybe they're working on fixing that, and that's why the next version, because this studio driver is kind of old now, it's like over a month old, whereas the game ready driver has been updated like 3 times in the past month. Maybe the studio driver, maybe they're still working on fixing this issue with the encoding. Now, when I would have tried the old studio driver, it would have been probably in like the 10th. So this driver hadn't released yet. So maybe they fixed something, and it's possible. The game ready driver all the way from like the beginning of October, it's been fucked up. At least at this point in time in 2022, at least fall, game ready drivers have been fucked up for rendering at least H.265. All right, so now here comes the test. I'm gonna go back to studio driver, restart my computer. We are back with the studio driver installed again to render this out. So this should be that 5:30 time. We'll see. It looks like you can swap back and forth between drivers, and you'll get the correct render time, or the how fast it should be rendering. So I'm going to run I am not going to get the studio version of Resolve. It's kind of confusing with these both having studio in their name, but I'm not going to get the studio version of Resolve because I don't need it. Yeah, there's some kind of problem with the game ready drivers right now. If you're actually on old game ready drivers, like it was naturally putting me on one from March of this year, pretty long time ago now, and that driver actually worked great. It actually rendered properly. Future Vex here. I need to cut in and say this. All I did for the rest of this was I actually tested the GPU game ready drivers and the studio drivers when rendering, transcoding, and Handbrake. And what that shows is basically in other programs, does it also have a problem. What I actually found out is that the new game ready drivers and the latest studio driver both perform the same in Handbrake. The new game ready drivers have a particular problem in Davinci Resolve, and that's actually the only place that they're lacking. So if you're ever concerned about that, then if you're using Resolve, I would use the studio drivers. That's what I discovered. After all of this, that's what I discovered. Thanks for watching. Bye.
I've been getting doubts, baby, and you say it shouldn't count lately, but I know it's my fault, I'm just like that, but I'm scared to take the blame, I don't wanna change.